Alright guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, we're doing part 9 of the never-ending story, the longest saga ever running on this channel, titled, Man Leaves Cheating Wife in Hotel with Nothing, but That Was Only the Beginning. And guys, for those of you who've been following this saga since July, this just keeps getting better and better. What we're having today is an update where we're going to have two parts to this update in terms of the perspective from Phil, the guy who's been telling the story about his crazy wife, the twin Ellie and Karen, who were sleeping with, switching husbands and cheating and all this type of craziness. And we also have the father of the twins, named Don, who was blackmailed by his wife, the girl's mother, for all these years to stay with her while she was cheating on him. It was a big, giant mess. And those girls learned many, many negative qualities from their mother. And we're going to get the Don's side of the story here. So this is definitely going to be interesting. The father who raised those girls. And a lot of you guys asked in the previous video, Phil was telling the story, and he said I can get the father's take on this, and all you guys said yes, you wanted to hear it, so here you go. So this first part is going to be, 2/3 of the story will be from the father's perspective with the daughters, explaining the whole thing. And this guy definitely is on the side with the husbands. He's ditching his a-hole wife after 30 years, and you guys have been a big help to him as well as the other guys. And the last part will be with Phil, some more updates on his situation with his crazy wife. So, like I said, this is the never-ending story. All we need is a flying white dragon named Falcor, and we're off. And if any of you guys know what I'm talking about, you 80s kids, never-ending story. So, starts off, or continues, it says here, Hi SSM. My name is Don, and I'm 53 years old, 54 in December. I'm the twins Ellie and Karen's father. Well, hello, sir. This is going to be interesting. I met with my son-in-laws, Ken and Phil, and with Phil's father at their usual Thursday night support dinner a couple weeks ago. They pressed me to write up my story and my history with my wife, Alice, and the twins and send it to SSM. Phil wanted me to include the latest on what Phil calls his father's romance with Ellie. I told Phil to write it up, and I'll attach it to the end of my story. Phil's father kept his continued contact with Ellie secret from everyone. If I knew about it, I would have stopped it. But I didn't know, no one knew, and it was all a surprise to all of us. You all recall in the last video, the Ellie girl was hitting on Phil's dad, and he was just playing along with it to set her up. I've been going to Phil and Karen's Thursday night support group dinners. I also become closer with my daughters. I don't discuss Ellie and Karen with Phil and Ken, and I don't discuss Phil and Ken with Ellie and Karen. Ellie and Phil don't have much nice to say about each other. Karen never says anything bad about Ken, but Ken has absolutely unpleasant things to say about Karen. Well, you can't exactly blame Ken. I listen to all of them, but I don't engage. I don't give any advice to any of them regarding their marriages and divorces. I keep everyone's confidences. I don't intervene. But if I had known about Phil's father and Ellie, I would have tried to stop it. I told my story to Phil and Ken over the long Thursday dinner. Ken and Phil always start their dinners and recommendations of SSM's videos to watch. Usually they suggest specific SSM stories when they sense the other one is weakening. If one starts saying, maybe she'll change, she's learned her lesson, maybe it was partly the husband's fault, maybe it's an illness and she can't be cured, or she can be cured, there's an SSM video that they can watch which talks about that. Yeah, pretty much after 4 years and 2,500 videos between all three channels, you can pretty much find a video on some subject relating to whatever predicament a guy is in, which is pretty cool. And I never thought I would be in this place when I started this channel 4 years ago. I was just having fun, reading news articles and talking about things that got on my goddamn nerves. I never expected any of this. So thank you all. They told me if I wanted to join their Thursday support group, I would need to have an SSM recommendation for them. I recommend it. They take these suggestions very seriously. They had lots of ideas about what I should watch. What I should talk about here takes us to the end of November 2023. Okay, so we got some current events going on here. Today is December 4th. About my daughters Ellie and Karen first. I have a lot to answer for. I watched all the posts that both Phil and Ken sent to SSM and read many of the comments. This has been very hard for me. I love my daughters, but I'm horrified and sickened by their behavior. I didn't know about what my daughters were doing, not behavior they would tell Daddy about. I can begin to imagine what it would be like as a father to hear these things. Not to mention the fact on a popular channel and reading thousands and thousands of comments, I can't imagine what it's like to be a parent. You have to realize your children have become something, well, quite frankly, the world could do without. And you know what? All parents make mistakes, and parents can be blamed to a certain point how their children are, but when those children become adults, that shit's on them. That's on the children, how they behave as adults. So, I wanted to say that. But just to be clear, I am to blame for their behavior. SSM says in one of the videos that women turn into their mothers. But they have their fathers as role models too. To have a weakling for a father, even an angry one, harm them beyond measure. That's what they'll want in a husband too. If they can't find a weakling to marry like their mother did, they will turn their husbands into one. Well, I respect that you take ownership of your mistakes. Most guys would not. Most people will blame anybody else, anything under the sun but themselves. So that's a major step. You are light years ahead of most people, sir. And by the way, you're 53, almost 54. Happy birthday for December. I'm going to be 46 in a matter of weeks. It ain't over yet. You still got plenty of years left. So you can make a major comeback in your life, even though you made mistakes for a long time. And that, to some extent, is what the twins did. Ken was head over heels in love with Karen. I never seen anyone as much in love as Ken was, except maybe me when I first met Alice. All Karen had to do was ask, and Ken gave. His entire life revolved around making sure Karen was happy. Smack the Ken. And Ken knows this. You can't do that, guys. No respect for you. Gotta make yourselves happy first. Always. I mean, you gotta be an a-hole, but you take care of you. And you check the girl when she's being a jackass. Otherwise, you'll get no respect. As this story clearly shows. I didn't see as much of Ellie and Phil, but I asked Phil who made the major decisions. Ellie or him? He said Ellie. Smack to Phil. And Phil goddamn knows it. All the decisions, major and minor. It was not worth fighting with Ellie. She never gave up. He loved her, wanted to see her happy. Smack. She was happy when she got her way. No, she wasn't. She was never happy. None of these jackasses ever are. The only time they're happy is actually when a guy puts them in their place. They'll complain, but they're actually, that's what keeps them at bay. All three of us were living with wives who controlled our lives. My wife did it with extortion. Ken and Phil's wives by their love and for their wives. All three of us had open marriages. My wife did it in my face. Their wives did it behind their backs. I need to apologize to Phil and Ken for my daughters. My daughters are adults who are responsible for their behavior. But Ellie and Karen had parents who allowed them to believe that their behavior was somewhat okay. If it's fine for their mother and their father went along with it, it's right for them too. I let that happen. You are to blame for something, sir, but I'm not totally in agreement there. They're fucking adults and they're assholes, and it's on them. SSM commented one of Phil's posts that I was too weak to leave. He's exactly right. My weakness led to over 30 years of hell for me, but also led to the twins' bizarre beliefs about SCX, relationships, loyalty, and marriage. That's on me. Now to Alice and me. Alice is this guy's a-hole wife, or soon-to-be ex-wife, and the mother of the twins. I met Alice at the state university we both attended. We met our freshman year. Alice grew up in the suburbs of a city about 2 hours from the university. I grew up in a town where the university is located. My father worked as campus security officer, so my tuition was free. I lived at home. If it didn't work for the university and I didn't live at home, I would not have gone to college. I was 17 when I started college in 1988. Wow, you were young. That's great that you had the opportunity. Alice's parents are better off than my parents, so they could pay for Alice to live in the dorm. That's where I met her. She's a few months older than me. I was a geek or a nerd in high school. Can't say I'm surprised, man, no offense, but given what I've read in these stories. Really, my entire life, I've been a nerd. I'm tall and very skinny and incredibly shy. A high school guidance counselor told me she thought I was pathologically shy. My people skills have never been very good. I never know what to say to anyone I don't know very well. When it comes to girls, multiply by 1,000, not knowing what to say. My friends were nerds, among them girls, but I had no romantic relationship until I met Alice. Until I met Alice, I'd never been kissed by a female who I wasn't related to. Well, you know what? You can be 50 years old now, 53, and still awkward and shy, but you can work on it. If you haven't improved on that, my man, I want you to work on your people skills. Just go talk to people, for God's sakes. Anywhere. The grocery store, the bank, standing in line at CVS, just strike up a conversation. Hey, how's your day going? Strike up a comment about something that you see around you. Use props. Anything. Even just saying hello to somebody, that's what it takes. You can overcome these things, guys. And at the end of the day, just ask people shit about themselves. People love to talk about themselves. It's fucking easy. I can strike up a conversation with anybody on the planet so long as they speak English or bad English. Anyway, I always did well in school. We had weekly tests in calculus the first semester of freshman year. When the professor handed me back my test, he always told me good job. No one else got a good job. Two of my classmates, a boy and a girl, who turned out to be boyfriend and girlfriend, asked if I wanted to start a study group with them. My interactions with my fellow students at that point were non-existent. These two seemed okay. I was happy to join any group that would have me. I was supposed to meet with them at my girlfriend's dorm room after my last class. She was in the newer dorm, which had small study rooms. The three of us would grab one alone. Alice was the girl's roommate. I knocked on the dorm room door and Alice answered. She was stunning, just incredibly beautiful. And you probably were speechless. I saw her and froze. She said hi and waited for me to say something. The guy from class was sitting on his girlfriend's bed and yelled for me to come in. Alice introduced herself. She waited for me to introduce myself, but my mouth wasn't working. She was amused and asked my name. I started sweating. I didn't remember my name. My classmate said, "That's Don. He's in our study group." Yeah, something tells me she could probably tell you were shy and starstruck by her beauty. Even though she's a freaking snake inside. Alice smiled and said, "Hey Don, nice to meet you." She asked what I wanted to get my degree in. I didn't remember. The guy said that I wanted to be an electrical engineer. She said, "Wow, you must be one of the smart ones." My study partner got up and we left to study. Alice said, "Bye Don, it was nice to meet you." I left without saying a word to Alice. Another smooth interaction with a girl. I should have just stuck to fantasizing about girls. Talking to them was beyond my abilities. When we left the room, the guy told me not to worry. Alice has that effect on all the guys. Oh, I'm sure she did, and I guarantee you she darn well knew it. After a couple weeks, it must have been on a Friday, my study partners asked if I wanted to get a drink after study group. I said I was too young to drink. Of course you said that. They said the bars around campus really don't check IDs. When we finished studying, the girls said we were going to go get Alice to come with us for drinks. I freaked. I certainly wanted to spend time in Alice's presence just to worship her. Smack! For God's sakes, dude. But I knew I would just shut down again. I would just be another embarrassing encounter for me. I told my study partners I had to get home after all. Alice's roommate said that Alice would be disappointed. It was Alice's idea to invite me to have drinks with them. They also wanted me to come. The guy from my study group said I was crazy not to come. Every guy at school would jump at the chance to spend 5 seconds with Alice. Well, I'm sure every guy did spend 5 seconds or more with Alice. But you know what? Hey, by you not going, makes her think, what the hell? This guy doesn't want to come after me, which will make her attracted to you. Although she's the last person you want attracted to you. His girlfriend gave him a dirty look, but he just shrugged. We went to get Alice. Alice was ready when we got to her room. She put her hand on my arm, smiled and said hello, and I asked how I was. They started to talk about which bar to go to. Alice insisted that we go to a bar without much noise so we could talk. Was I going to have to talk to Alice? What a disaster. I thought maybe they'll just talk among themselves and ignore me. Not the first time that has happened. I'd just sit with them for a little while and leave, and they probably wouldn't even notice. We got to a small booth that barely fit 4 people at the bar they picked. Alice sat next to me. Her thigh was pressing against my thigh. Heaven and hell, I got a boner. But at least I was sitting so no one could see me. So I gotta stop here and say, what was the attraction? No offense, dude, but she's a hottie, you can get anybody. And you described yourself as the tall, lanky, nerd, shy guy, you know. You couldn't have been that bad looking. And obviously you had the social credit because of her friends and your friends and all that. And she probably just liked making guys squirm, you know, but whatever. But also these gals like playing fucking games, you know. Anyhow. But at least I was sitting so no one could see. Then I thought, what if I went off? It was certainly possible. I began to really panic. Alice leaned toward me, more thigh contact, and she put her hand on my forearm. She asked me about electrical engineering. This would be a death of 1,000 cuts. I looked at my study partners to save me, but they were in their own discussions. The girlfriend was angry about his remark that everyone wanted to be with Alice. Oh, tell her to get over it. Alice was smiling and waited for me to say something. I croaked out something about always having been fantasized by electricity and how it traveled and what it could do. I was ready to kick myself. Electricity? What was wrong with me? Alice didn't want to hear about electricity. I figured Alice would turn to talk about the other two and wanted to leave. Instead, she asked me to explain. Okay. I could talk about electricity all day, so I started to explain electricity. Alice looked like she was interested. I stopped thinking about the problem I've been having under the table. She made it easier for me to be with her. Yes, as your typical hooker. She actually asked questions, encouraging me to talk. I almost sound like a normal person, at least a normal nerd. Alice seemed fascinated by everything I said. I was sure that she was just goofing on me. Any minute she'd start laughing at me. Well, sometimes, unfortunately, that happens. Fuck it. Talk about electricity all you want. You're a reincarnation of Benjamin Franklin or Thomas Edison or Nikola Tesla. Fuck it. You like talking about electricity? Talk about electricity. She doesn't like it. Tough shit. After an hour, my study partners left, leaving Alice and me alone. I figured Alice stayed because her roommates wanted to be alone with her boyfriend and her in Alice's dorm room. Alice would give them some time together and then leave. The guys in the bar must have thought I was Alice's relative or maybe the geek she had to do her homework for her. One guy, encouraged by his buddies, sat down at the table with us. He asked if he could buy Alice a drink. She looked at him with contempt and said, "Don't you see I'm with someone?" I looked around trying to figure out who she was with. Alice took my hand and said that let's get away from these jerks. It was a nice night, so we walked around campus. We spent the next 2 hours talking about our past and what we wanted to do with our lives. I was alone with a beautiful girl. This has not been my life up until now. Alice kissed me on the cheek. When I finally left the dorm, I was in love. Smack! Jesus Christ, I'm surprised you didn't come in your pants when she kissed you on the cheek. A week later, on Saturday morning, Alice called me at home. My mom answered and mouthed to me that there was a girl on the phone. That's probably the first time your mother said that. It motioned to me to hurry, come get to the phone. No, take your time, make her wait. Alice told me it was too nice of a day to stay inside. Did I want to meet her at the park? My mother was standing close enough to hear Alice on the phone. Women are so fucking nosy. Her mouth fell open. Alice and I agreed on when and where to meet. I hung up and closed my mother's mouth with a tip of my forefinger on her chin. When Alice met my parents, my father never stopped smiling. He looked demented. My mother kept staring at me, trying to figure out what Alice saw in me and that my mother had somehow missed. They loved her, not as much as I did. Alice and I started to spend a lot of time together. I thought of her as my girlfriend. She'd come to find me in the library after class. Most days we spent as many weekends together as we could, unless Alice had something else to do. I never questioned her about why she couldn't see me on the nights or the weekends. She was busy with something else, and she never explained. Uh-oh, here we go. Couldn't see you on those nights, couldn't see you on the weekends. She could never explain. Perhaps, I'm sorry to say, she's locking in. This guy's a long-term investment for an earning potential. No offense, sir. Meanwhile, she's out having fun with the bad boys on the other times. I tried over the years to figure out why Alice pursued me, and it was her pursuing me. I would never have the guts to even say hi to her. At the time, I didn't want to think about why someone like Alice would even glance at someone like me. Jesus, dude, you gotta really, past you, needs to work on your self-esteem. We all have great qualities. I didn't want to jinx anything with Alice by looking at our relationship too closely. It might dissolve as if I asked myself too many questions, or asked her any questions at all. I was in love and didn't want to rock the boat. Honestly, I was willing to take any time with Alice that she would give me. Jesus Christ. You see, guys, how he's setting himself up here? Mentally thinks he's not worth shit. He's doing anything to make her happy, anytime with her, be her beck and call. That's going to turn a woman off. I didn't care about anything else. If this was too good to be true, I didn't want to find out it was too good to be true. Please tell me you're getting some at this point. Really? But as I said, I thought about it over the years. It never made sense to me until I started watching SSM's videos. Here's what I think now. Wealthy parents, for the most part, don't send their children to state universities. So the students at our school had to do it on their own if they wanted to be successful. For Alice, success meant money. Alice was going to be a history major and was taking education courses. She was studying to be a high school history teacher. The people she was meeting were in the humanities and education departments. She told me once all those people would never amount to anything when they got their worthless degrees. They'll end up like their parents. They were wasting their time in college, and she was not going to waste her time on them. I was going to be an engineer, someone who would make a decent living. If I was intelligent enough, maybe I'd make a very good living. Alice thought I was smart enough, and she latched on. At least until someone better came along. After spending 2 hours with me walking around campus in the park, Alice was interviewing me to see if I had the proper characteristics to be a piggy banking servant. There you go. They start as long-term investments, like buying stock in a company that makes great stuff, and they're pretty much minimal competition and all that, and they pay good dividends and whatever. And you buy it now and just sit back and watch it. Like money, you get my point. They see these guys and they're like, oh, this guy's great long-term investment. I was going to be an engineer, someone who would make a decent living. I read that part. Alice got pregnant with the twins as soon as we returned from our sophomore year. Oh my God. So she's like 20 and got pregnant with them. She was using a spermicide back then that didn't work, or she forgot to apply. Yeah, I'm sure she really forgot. She told me I was the father. I had no reason to believe otherwise then. We found out from Ken's SSM post that Ellie took my toothbrush and sent it with her DNA test for testing. The twins are my kids. Ellie had no reason to lie about caring about that. So, they were born when you were like 21? Oh my God. Alice didn't want to end the pregnancy, so she thought that such a procedure was wrong. So at 18, I had a pregnant girlfriend. Oh, you're way younger. That's right, you started college at 17. We dropped out of school and got married in a small ceremony at her parents' house. Smack! Dropped out of school, all that, married her. Oh my God. Well, let me guess. She's in a wealthy family. Now she can get some of that family dough. In those days, getting married was the only option. Alice wanted to live in her hometown near her parents and the friends that she grew up with. Anything she wanted, so we found a 2 small-bedroom apartment within a couple blocks of her parents. I don't think I was baby-trapped. Really? I don't think Alice wanted to get pregnant. It didn't make sense for her if she wanted to be a successful engineer. Or wanted me to be a successful engineer. I had to drop out of school. We'd be poorer than the classmates she made fun of for pursuing useless degrees. Pregnancies happen. Yeah, but maybe she thought mom and dad would give her a bunch of money. I took any job I could. Most of the time I worked 2 jobs. Alice spent most of her time hanging out with friends, and he uses that in quotes. I never met any of her friends. Well, why the hell now, as her husband, you demand to meet these so-called friends, huh? Until she was showing and obviously pregnant. Alice would dress up and go out at night. I was working days and evenings, and she said she was bored at home alone. When I suggested she get a job, she belittled me for not being able to provide for her. What kind of man expected his wife to support him? A pregnant wife at that. And because you've proven to be a pushover and she's the only girl giving you attention, of course she went along with every bit of her demands. And you see how the disrespect she's showing him and all that? When she started showing, she spent the day on the couch watching soap operas. She didn't want to have anything to do with me. Talking to me became a chore. Our sex life together had ceased after she became pregnant. I wrote this off to her being pregnant with the uncomfortable. Yeah, well, she's getting pregnant with the freaking little devil children here, the devil daughters. When the twins Ellie and Karen arrived, they were born with horns. No. Alice decided real quick that being a mother was not really her thing. Shocker. Too much work. Alice's mother stepped in. She loved our girls and was willing to take them at a moment's notice for however long we needed her. Here's where our normal routine came down to. I would get home from my second job after midnight. Alice would be asleep. Either she would see about the twins at night or wanted me to. In the morning, Alice usually slept in, and I would drop the twins at her mother's and go to my day job. Weekends, I had a Saturday and Sunday job, but would take the kids. When I got home, Alice would see her friends. So you're working 2 jobs, you come home, take care of the kids. You get up in the morning, take care of the kids. On the weekend, you work a job and take care of the kids. What the fuck is she doing? But of course, you're so happy to have this beautiful woman pay attention, you're willing to let her do anything. You can't do that, my man. I know you know this now, but Jesus H. Christ. This is why I work hard to build guys up so they had the self-esteem not to put up with this dog shit. I was working as a cashier at a small grocery store during the day and at the liquor store at night on weekends. I was working a lot but wasn't making much money. I was always worried about money. There was no future in what I was doing, hustling between low-paying jobs. Alice wanted nice things for her and our daughters. Alice made it clear that I was not fulfilling my responsibilities as a husband and father. I could not provide the lifestyle she wanted. I had to get a job with a future. Okay, well, how about this? You're doing what you have to do, and then some. How about you? You're not doing your job as a wife. Taking care of the girls, cooking, cleaning, all that. Where's all that going on? All right, you get off your fucking ass, Miss I'm so amazing. I applied for a job with a startup electronics company. In the late 1980s, people invested in minimization of electronic components. It still is. The firm was founded by a guy who came up with a way to reduce the size of the essential component of audio boards. I went for an interview and my future boss hired me because I knew what a circuit board was and all the chips weren't made from potatoes. So some were made with silicon. He gave me 5 math problems to solve in 1 hour. I did them in 20 minutes. When he saw that I solved all 5 math problems, he told me that I was the only applicant to solve the last problem. He hired me on the spot. Cool. Well, good for you. Too bad you weren't doing that just for you, not for your a-hole wife. I was finally in a job with a future in a field that I loved. I wanted to progress. I worked quickly. We needed the overtime money, so I put in long hours, at least 12 hours weekdays and 4 to 5 hours on Saturday. At least you were doing something with the future that you were passionate about. Alice spent a lot of time exercising. Define exercising. I think they called it jazzercise back then. Oh my God, I remember that nonsense. She wanted back the body as she had before the kids. She spent a lot of time with her friends. She ain't ever getting that body back, that I can tell you. Alice wanted me to put in as many hours as I could. Her mother had the twins much of the time. Alice hung out with her friends. I'd always call Alice late in the afternoon telling her when I thought I'd get home from work. At that time, I was more likely until after 9 p.m. Why the fuck doesn't she have a job? If those twins are with their mother, why isn't she doing something to help out? I'll tell you why, because you weren't laying down the law, my man. At the time, it was more likely not until after 9. I was still an hourly employee at the time, so the overtime pay was important. My boss approved on the overtime I wanted. One June evening in 1990, I called Alice to tell her I'd be home at 9 p.m. She didn't pick up, so I left a message on the answering machine. Alice wasn't there when I got home. She left a note saying that the twins were with their mother. She was out with her friends. She'll be home when she gets home. Don't wait up. She'll see me when she sees me. Your wife, your mother, that ain't gonna fly. We're gonna have some changes around here. That's what he should have said, but he did not. Alice got home at 2:30 in the morning. She's been a liquor, her makeup had run, and her dress was half unzipped. I was in bed but awake. I looked at her and asked her where she'd been, and she just ignored me. She shook off her clothes and dumped them on the floor. No panties. She hadn't worn panties or had left them somewhere. Also, no wedding ring. She got into bed and fell asleep, oblivious to me waiting for the explanation. Yeah, you're not going to get an explanation, or she'll say, fuck you. She was asleep in the morning. I didn't sleep much, but I got up at my usual 5:30, got the kids ready, and dropped them off with their mothers. I would get her drunk and hungover ass up to assist you in that. I called later to tell Alice I'll be home at 9 p.m. and that we had to talk when I got home. She didn't pick up the phone again. I spent the rest of my time at work wondering if she'd be there when I got home, and what to do if she wasn't. I was the last one to leave work, a usual occurrence. I set the building alarm before I left. The alarm rang as someone opened the door or the window, but I didn't call out to any security service or the police. The owner wanted to spend money on equipment and not on things like security. I left by a door that was supposed to lock automatically when it closes, but it has to close completely to lock. I didn't check to see if it was closed completely and locked. I was too preoccupied worrying about Alice. I should have checked the door. We were robbed, and some really expensive equipment, specialized equipment, the owner's pride and joy was taken. So, in the previous story from Phil, this is what happened that led his a-hole wife Alice to blackmail him, because if it got about what he did here, he could have been responsible and jeopardize his future, and you'll see. When I got home, Alice wasn't there. I found pretty much the same note as the night before. This time she still wasn't home the next morning when I left to drop the kids off and go to work. Talk about her saying a giant F you to you, huh? I hadn't heard from her and I didn't know where she was. No cell phones in those days. When I got to work the next morning, it was a shitstorm because of the robbery. The cops interviewed me. I told them as far as I knew, I was the last one to leave. But I closed the door and checked that it was locked. I lied. I had not checked the door, that the door was locked. They thought I was in on the robbery. I walked through when I was leaving that night before. I turned off the inside lights, walked down the stairs, set the alarm, exited, and checked the door. It was closed and locked. When the police arrived, responding to the 911 call from someone reporting the alarm, they said the door was propped open. The company and the police believed it was an inside job because only an insider would know the worth of the equipment taken. There was other equipment around that was easier to take but not worth nearly as much money. I was the obvious candidate, but they couldn't prove it was me or that it wasn't me. I was in limbo. Yeah, you messed up, but, I'm sorry it happened, man. You were young. If I remember correctly, the robbery was on a Thursday night. I was sent home from work early the next day after spending much of the day being interrogated. Alice was home when I got home. She asked why I was home so early. I didn't answer her. Instead, asked her where she'd been the last 2 nights. She said she was with a friend. Her friend was too drunk to drive Alice home that night, and so she slept over her girlfriend's. Who was this friend? Oh, just a friend, she said. Not anyone I knew. Then Alice told me it was none of my business where she was and what she was doing. Bullshit. It is 100% my business, and you're going to start talking. She demanded to know why I was home early. She wanted to know if I had been fired. That's all she cares about, how much the money you're bringing in. I told her what happened at work. I told her I lied about checking to see if the door was locked. I felt I had to tell them that if I didn't check the door, the robbers could have happened upon the unlocked door and took advantage of the opportunity. So maybe it wasn't an inside job. But how did the robbers know what equipment to take? And if I lied about checking the door, then they think I lied about being in on the robbery. Alice told me they would fire me. I thought so too. She told me if I was fired, she'd leave with the kids. Oh, what a loving wife. I had this one last chance at a decent career and was throwing it away. It was probably someone hiding in the building who let the robbers in. If I told them I lied, my career would be ruined. I'd be back to minimum wage jobs and she wouldn't live with that. Or wouldn't live like that. We went back and forth over this for an hour. At least Alice didn't go out with her friends that night. She made a call to cancel the plans. I'm pretty sure it was a man on the other end of the phone. I put it aside. I was more concerned about getting fired and arrested. Alice and her nights out could wait. I listened to Alice and kept quiet about lying. The owner wanted to pin it on me to close the case and get the insurance money quickly. My boss stood by me. He would not listen to anyone who said I was behind the robbery. Well, that's awesome that your boss was sticking with you. The police did not find the robbers. The insurance company paid the claim. The owner, who was having money problems, took the insurance and quickly sold his company and the patent to another company. He was probably behind it. That's what was probably going on here. He wanted to get the insurance money and cash in because they said he was having money problems. That's the first thing that they usually investigate upon a robbery or something like this, is the person who's been hit by this having money problems. My boss let the owner set up the robbery for the insurance. Once he had the insurance money, he got out. There you go. And the fuckers want to put it on you. Tech companies buying of smaller companies was as common as rain in those days. The company was bought by another company, which was bought by another company. I worked for 7 successful companies in 30 plus years. During this time, a couple of these companies thought it was worthwhile paying me to get an education. I now have a BS and 2 advanced engineering degrees. Well, cool. Make them pay for it. You're obviously damn good at what you do. After it was clear I was going to keep my job, Alice told me she had some things to tell me. She was going to go back to school to finish her degree. She'd live at the university, and I'll pay for the school and an apartment for her. I'll stay here with the kids and work. Her mother will help with the babysitting. Oh, how interesting. Listen to all this from her. Why is she saying this? Because she has dirt on this guy. She also said she's going to date other men openly. She's been seeing a couple guys. She was with one of them and not at her girlfriend's when she was out all night. She was with the other one at the night before. She's been seeing both of them for a while and was tired of sneaking around. She looked at me and told me she's been planning to leave me. One of the guys she was seeing had a good job and a nice apartment. But once I told her about the robbery and that they suspected me, she knew she'd better off staying with me as long as I wasn't fired. In other words, she can blackmail you the whole time. You know what, bro? This is terrible, but you should never ever allow that. Your daughter Ellie tried this bullshit with Phil, and Phil handled it right. But you were extremely young and not in that place and fucked up, but still. I wasn't fired, so she decided she didn't want a divorce after all. She'll see other men openly. She's been seeing other guys the whole time we knew each other, while we were in college together, and after we moved to where we live now, there was no need to hide it anymore. So guys, I'm going to stop this here and continue on to the next part in a few hours, but this goes to show how freaking evil she is. Absolutely freaking evil. And this guy was so young, and you saw how she saw him early on, and like, oh, this nerdy guy, he's got a future, I can rope onto him. And remember he said that she wasn't seeing anybody on nights, wouldn't see him on nights or weekends, because she was out with a guy she really liked. This guy was her long-term investment. And I'm sorry, sir, I know you figured this out, and I'm sorry that happened to you. But, oh my God, Alice is the freaking devil. But don't worry, our guy here, he's making a comeback here, and it's great listening to your soon-to-be ex-son-in-laws, and you're all working together here, and hopefully I can help you. But anyhow, we're going to continue on to the next part. I'll finish up this guy's side of the story, and more information from Phil and his daughters pretty soon. So just stick around, and we'll have the next part up in a few hours.